The Catoctin Center is a collaborative project between the National Park Service and Frederick Community College. Part of our role is to work with local and regional historical organizations like the Journey Through Hallowed Ground, ARCH here in Frederick, African American Resources, Cultural and Heritage. We work with the Historical Society of Frederick County, Frederick County Landmarks Foundation. Particularly, we're very involved with the heart of the Civil War heritage area. There's such a great history here in this region of African American history. There are lots of historic sites that we need to look at. We've already lost several, so we need to do a better job of preserving the ones we still have. In Frederick, the two main communities of African Americans were concentrated on West All Saints Street in Frederick and the what we now call the Shab Row area. West All Saints, of course, is the one I think we probably know best as the center of African American community in Frederick. And it still is a center of African American life in Frederick, and it has an incredible number of historical sites all up and down the street. Quinn Chapel, it's probably one of our oldest African American churches, certainly in town here, and they extend to the early part of the 19th century. They moved into the building on 3rd Street in the early part of the 19th century. It's been remodeled, of course, through the years, but it's an incredible history, particularly during the Civil War. They served as a hospital after the Battle of Monocacy in 1864. Wounded soldiers were cared for in the church. And then it also became the site of the first school for African American children following the Civil War. Another site that I like to show visitors is a very specific grave in the St. John's Catholic Cemetery. And this is the grave of a USCT soldier, again, United States Colored Troops soldier, which was the official designation for the African American units during the Civil War. And I always like to juxtapose this grave with 100 yards away, if even that, is the grave of Roger Brooke Tawney, another famous Frederictonian. Very complicated individual, very complicated history, but he was the author of the Dred Scott decision, considered one of the worst decisions in U.S. history. And it's famous in part for declaring that African Americans were not considered citizens of the U.S. and therefore had no rights as citizens. And I like to point out that just 100 yards away is the grave of someone who fought for the U.S. government, fought for the rights of liberty, fought for the rights to become a citizen, and I think is a very dramatic story being told just in the cemetery between these graves. We have not traditionally studied African American history closely. It's really not until the last 20, 30 years has the majority of people really started to pay attention to African American sites, and we should have done so earlier, but we didn't. So we need to catch up with preserving African American sites.